What if I told you that strength training is just as important to your future as your retirement savings? Today's guest believes that building muscle isn't about a certain way. It's about protecting your independence, your metabolism, and your blood sugar for decades to come. And if you think it's too late to start, this conversation is especially for you.
Why do we keep going back to quick fixes, even when we know they don't work? Welcome to the Coach's Hotline. Glucose, grit, and grace. Real talk with coaches, no sugarcoating.
We're here to help you ditch the diet cycle, stabilize blood sugar, and finally feel at home in your body.
Because health isn't about restriction. It's about freedom, energy, and confidence.
Let's dive in.
Today is a first for Glucose, Grit, and Grace. We're welcoming our first fitness professional to the podcast and couldn't be more excited about that. Our guest, Cheryl Guthrie, has spent 37 years helping people get stronger, healthier, and more confident, especially as they age. She's a certified personal trainer and a nutrition coach. She teaches everything from strength training and bar to senior chair classes, and is the owner of Train for Life, a studio she opened inside a physical therapy practice. Today, we're talking about why strength training is just as important to your future as your retirement savings, how it supports your blood sugar balance, and how to start no matter your age. Cheryl, we're so excited to have you here. Welcome to Glucose, Grit, and Grace.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here. I am very passionate about strength training, especially as we age, and looking forward to our conversation.
Awesome. So are we. So, Cheryl, before we dive into strength training and blood sugar, I'd love our listeners to get to know you a little bit more. Can you share what first drew you into fitness and why this work has mattered for you for so long?
Sure. It wasn't the path that I intended, but I grew up with a mom who was a chronic dieter, and every Monday was a new diet. Every weekend was eat what you want, and it was an obsessive scale. And as I grew up, I thought, gosh, I don't want to fight my weight, but I knew instinctively that diets didn't work because she had tried everything. She'd even worked at a couple of the diet places that she had.
Wow.
And she would lose and gain weight. And of course, her mood was, and how she perceived herself was always dependent on whether she was
Yeah.
or gained weight. And she's now 82 and still concerned, and also heavier than she's ever been. So, very vividly at 15 saying, I will not fight my weight, but I also will not do what she did. And the two things that I saw as a teenager that she did not do was to exercise and move her body and to learn how to eat real food. So that kind of got me on a kick. I remember starting to run at 15 and become more conscious of what I ate. And then when I went off to college, I continued to run. And I would joke that my college roommate was 6 foot. She modeled the same, but I'm 5'4", and I would be in the room eating salads, and she'd be eating chocolate and chips.
Oh, wow.
We're
No
good friends. We joke about that, later. But that was also the time. It was, early 80s, and Kenneth Cooper had just kind of term aerobics. And so aerobic classes were becoming a thing, and people were becoming more concerned about fitness. And so the college that I attended started offering fitness classes.
Oh, nice.
And I started taking some of the first, was jumping jacks and jogging. But I got out of college, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I had a psych degree and a minor and so I took a job at a YMCA, and they taught me how to teach. And I thought, let's do this while I figure out whether I should go back to school. And anyhow, it really became something I loved. Teaching classes. I at 21 was teaching, classes to people, and I would pick their brains on, at age, what, had done well and what they would do over. And, over I heard be active. And so that took me on a lifelong journey of learning about nutrition, learning about movement. I really didn't do a lot of strength training until I got into my early 30s. And at that point, there was just more research coming out for women. And that got me into, just a little 3-5 pound dumbbells that you might use in an aerobic class. And that's when I really started seeing both my body change and just how what I did in a workout would transfer into my everyday life.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten older, now I certainly can look at what I can do based on strength training. And my class 50 to, well, right now it's 50 to 86, but I've worked with a woman that was 100 years old
Oh,
that
wow.
came to some of my classes. And they had isn't that amazing? And
That is amazing. That's awesome.
one of the things I loved about her is that she missed about a week and a half. And when she came back, her daughter brought her in. She had a walker and she was all bruised in her face. And I said, Ruth, what happened? And she had fallen. And she said, I made my daughter bring me today because I knew if I missed more than a couple classes, I would get out of the habit. This is at 100 years old. I mean, I was so inspired by the fact that she was so driven that she was willing to come, probably hurting and certainly looking pretty beat up.
Yeah.
But it was that important to her that she continued that habit that she had done for years.
Wow.
So
That is awesome.
I get pretty inspired.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was that strength training that she did that meant that she didn't break anything when she fell.
Honestly,
Yeah.
really.
So that kind of goes into, Cheryl, and I really love when you and I talked in your bio and stuff, you talked about how strength training is as important as your retirement savings. I love that phrase. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you mean about that?
Yeah, that is a big one I use. The other one I say a lot is that when you take care of your fitness and your strength, you are not only giving yourself a gift to yourself, but you give a gift to those who live. And that, we're dealing with my mom because she has never been active. She can sound, it's, and it's been a lot. And for her, she keeps saying, I don't know what happened. So I was sitting to watch and it's settle. And that's why, about retirement and you think about, money away monthly and they really look at, going to be financially sound when I retire. I mean, we're at right now, my husband will 65 in July, he's going to retire. And so, we're looking at our financial situation, but we've also been preparing for that for years, knowing that this day would come. Sadly, very few people look at their fitness level in the same way. And yet, you just go work it. You can't buy your sack. You can't go. You can always do something, but those who have continually put, every workout, I'm like, your work is basically, you just came in or that 30 minutes, whatever it was, maybe it was 15 minutes. You just put an investment into your, account, basically preparing you for what's going to, move in the next 10 years, next 20 years. How you receive your workouts really has a huge impact. And those that look at this, I have one client who I have a number of small group client that focus on strength training. And one of the groups, all the gals are in their probably mid 70s. One of them has a degenerative nerve disease that will make her wheelchair bound at some point. And she wears braces and she has a cane. But I think I've trained her maybe 7 years, but we all call her like the inspiration in class because she's striving every class to make it, to do more and to do what she can. And she's fighting both for her own independence, but as also so that her kids don't have to take care of her but we cause her peer pressure. We're like, what is Nancy doing? If Nancy can do that, I can do that. So, admire the people that are saying, it's up to me if I want to be, more independent. One of the things that you look at when you retire is, hey, I want to travel, or I want to do some of the hobbies that
Yeah.
I maybe haven't had time for.
Mhm.
But if you haven't taken care of your health, if you sat in a computer desk or and home and then sat in front of a computer or a TV, you aren't going to be able to do the things that you want to do. I had a client share recently with me that she had gone on a European vacation with some of her friends who were all in their mid to late 60s. And she said they wanted to stay back on the cruise because they couldn't do the excursions. They didn't want to walk that far. They didn't want to hike. And, she founded that here they had spent all this money and planned to go on a vacation and then weren't able to do a lot of it because they didn't have the strength and the fitness level to be able to. So,
That's
it's a big deal.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So, what happens like physiologically to us when we don't prioritize strength as we age? I mean, that's a really good example, your client's friends of not being able to do something, but why is that?
It's very subtle. And that's why, people have a disconnect with their bodies. And we talk about that as nutrition coaches, seem to always associate that what I ate impacts how I feel. Um,
Mhm.
but the same is true with our bodies, that there's kind of I laugh, but it's sad too, but because I'm working in a physical therapy office or a building, we have people come in and there's something that they actually is a term called dead butt syndrome. And it literally is from people sitting too much so that their muscles, their glute muscles don't know how to fire correctly. And that's, part of your core. It's part of you get up and down. And it's a real thing. And it's a, excuse me, it's a thing that is becoming more prevalent in younger people because of the culture that we live in.
Yeah.
It's because I've been training for about, years. That's probably the biggest thing I've seen is the number of younger people who, clients in their 70s and 80s who could outwork people half their age. And it's
Mm.
because they've chosen to make strength training a priority. And these are people have Parkinson's, real things, but they are choosing to actively stay strong. We start losing muscle mass in our 30s and you don't notice it, but
Right.
it's subtle. And so then in your 40s, you lose every decade, it's at least a 1%. But that's up. If it's 10% over 20 years, it's 20%. It's a big deal. And people don't really notice it because they stop doing harder. So now I'm not going to do that anymore. With my mom, now my in-laws, uh, my mom's going to be 89 next month. They have horses. They are outside every day. They're very active. They've actually never owned, gym membership, but they have weights in their house. They do exercises. They don't use a cane. They don't use a walker. The difference, we
Yeah.
can't always control everything that happens to us, but
Right.
I always say, man, whatever you can control, do.
Yeah.
You buy it
Yeah.
later. You can't, doesn't bring you a new body. And unfortunately,
We were just talking about that.
Yeah, we were. Yeah.
the things I tell people regularly is that you literally can hire somebody to do almost everything for you. You have somebody drive for you, clean for you, do your grocery shopping, but you can't have somebody exercise or strength train for you and give you the
Right.
benefits. I'd be a billionaire if I could have figured that one out. Right?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. It's almost like if you don't deposit into that retirement account or at least maintain it, you're actually going to lose it. So,
You are. Yeah,
so
it's a stagnant. That's what I can't the number of times my mom has said, I don't know why my legs don't work anymore. And because I've for years and disconnect, but that's common and it doesn't take much, but it does take a consistent deposit in that
just to
account.
maintain. Yeah,
Yep.
It's you lose it, use it or lose it.
exactly.
That is a very, very statement. People joke
Yeah,
about it, but the other thing that's a true statement is I think it's Newton's law of motion that a body in motion is easier kept in motion, and a body that
Yeah.
is at rest is
yeah,
easier to stay at rest.
yeah,
Also,
it is. So let's connect because all of us are coaches for PFC3. So with this training and knowledge that you have, let's connect the strength training to the blood sugar. Something our audience and we coaches care deeply about. So how do you make that connection, between strength training and the blood sugar? There had to be something that said, oh, there is a correlation between this PFC3 thing and what I'm doing with strength training. So
Yeah, huge. And I don't hear it talked about very much. The talk about blood sugars, it's almost always correlated to their food. But
yeah,
boy, exercise has a huge impact, and strength training in particular has a big impact. There's, and I'll probably glance at my notes to make sure I don't forget them all. But one of them is that strength training improves your insulin sensitivity and lowers your fasting sugars. Yeah, post meal spikes. So one of the things that I think most of us have talked about before and recommended to our nutrition clients is that if you even go for like a 10-minute walk after you eat, that's going to bring your blood sugars down. And so strength is also part of that. If it's cold and wet outside and you're not going to go for a walk, then stand in your kitchen and do 20 air squats. It's your muscles that's going to make that difference in dropping the blood sugars. You all contract your muscles. You are able to use glucose without having insulin involved in that. And that when people when they strength train during as well as after, that also allows their blood sugars. If they were, will have a glucose monitor that they're looking at, and usually when they are strength training, and certainly afterwards, their blood sugars have dropped.
Explain what you mean by contract, though. I don't think that that's something that maybe the common person might understand.
Yeah, so muscles contract, and that just weight train. I'm muscles. So an easy example is that if you did a bicep curl, if you just flexed from your elbow up, your muscle contracts and it shortens, and so that process right there, that's what is going to blood sugars down just in that contraction. And your body doesn't have to use insulin to do that. So that's a benefit. One of the big ones that I'm a huge fan of people increasing their muscle just because it is everything easier. And it also provides basically you have more muscle in your body. It's like a sink to store. It's like for your blood sugars. How would I say? Yeah. So having more muscle in your body gives you a larger sink for storage. And so, I have to know all the little intricacies, but they just need to know that when I strength train and when I increase muscle and I change, one of the things that is really hard for me to watch is when people do extreme diets or they even the GLPs where they're not strength training because they're losing massive amounts of muscle.
Right.
And people don't care. All they care about is a number on the scale. But honestly, as you age, what's going to allow you to have a vibrant life is not the number on the scale. It's your muscle mass. And somebody who falls and breaks a bone isn't going to be like, woohoo, I'm only, on the scale.
right.
They're going to care. It's your muscle mass that is going to keep your likelihood as your strong core is going to keep you from falling easily. I always tell clients, it's not a matter of if you're going to trip, it's when you trip, are you going to be able to catch yourself? Or, you fall, are you going to be able to kind of not fall? So those are really big deals. And like I said, it impacts it, storage also for glucose. It stays blood sugar over time. So the more that I strength train, basically your body becomes much more efficient. And so people have more consistent blood sugars when they are weight training. And the other big one, and because we're all in that age range, that when you are in the perimenopause and menopause beyond, that strength training really helps balance your hormones. I've said over and over again that the women that are strength training through menopause are doing so much better. They don't have the imbalances near as often. And part of that is also keeping blood sugar levels consistent.
So, Cheryl, I have a question to kind of what you've been talking about. We know as blood sugar stabilization coaches that everybody who eats, who needs to be aware of their blood sugar level. And also know that we've got some audience members who may be pre-diabetic or have diabetes. Can you talk about how the of strength training with people who are already becoming insulin resistant can be really powerful?
Yeah, so I have a number of clients who are who come to me because that's one of the things that amazingly that there are some doctors that are recommending strength training as part of having to go on diabetic medication. I have a current client right now who his goal is to get off his diabetes, and so one of the things that was recommended to him was strength training. So, it talked about it's changing your body composition. It's allowing, muscle is a very efficient. So I always say if I sit next to somebody who, same weight, but I have more muscle mass, my body has more of a furnace going on. It's burning calories at a higher rate because muscle is a much more active tissue, and so blood sugars are going to be, and it's comes down to our bodies were made to move. And when we don't move, and unfortunately we're in a culture now that in apartments, or they live in places where they might have somebody that comes in and does their yard work. Grow up as much having to do yard work, and there's very little. People have to very consciously choose to be active nowadays, and so we've seen the ill effect of not moving on our bodies. And yes, the whole diabetes thing has a huge nutrition, and what we eat is massive, but strength training will have a huge impact on that as well. And I always say it goes hand in hand, that when I am choosing, when people come in and they it's 30 minutes or an hour, and they've taken the time and they put in the effort to weight train, it makes them stop and think, do I really want to negate all that by putting in a bunch of junk? So it's kind of that habit, a habit encourages the next healthy habit.
Yeah.
And kids were growing up, we'd always say, who you hang with is who you become. That doesn't change as we're adults.
Right.
I always say, if you're become hanging out with your buddies and eating a bunch of junk, your body is going to show that. If you hang with people who are going to hit the gym or hit a class together or go walking together. Walking is one of the easiest things to do. It's one of my favorite things to do because I can have a lot of time to meet up with friends. And so, walk and talk, hey, it's good for our bodies. It's good for our mental, good for our blood sugars.
And you can solve the world's problems.
I know, I regularly.
Yeah.
If people would listen.
Exactly. I know. So many of our listeners are in that 50s, 60s, 70s, even 80 plus age. What do you say to someone who feels intimidated or too late? Have never been to a gym. They don't know about how to lift weights because, you think about it in that age group, like you said, aerobics came around in the 80s.
Yeah.
So about someone who might be a little intimidated, what would you say to them if they think it's too late?
Well, just a little aside, I people regularly. I literally have lived in a gym probably more than I've lived in my house since I was 21, and I can go to a new gym and I'm intimidated.
Yeah.
Have this in my and I can walk into a gym and feel, and I'm in shape, and I can feel like, man, what if somebody's watching me and I don't do it right, or what if I've never seen that machine
And you're
before?
a
So
trainer.
exactly, certainly given me a taste that if I can feel that, man, it's a huge hurdle for people to walk through the door and then to keep walking back. And I will say the success I've seen over the years is when people get connected. They connect with a trainer that helps build their confidence. They connect with, years ago, I had a woman come in who was in her probably mid to later 60s, had lost her husband in the past year, and was just lost. And she was so afraid. And, some time just kind of used to things. And then as she got a little bit more comfortable, I plugged her into, people and she still is working out now, and she's probably 78. And the fitness community is huge for her. And she said regularly, it has saved my life. She's a big fan of nutrition, eating that well as well. So it's been fun to watch that progress over the years. But honestly, I lean in the gym. I live out in the country. It takes me 30 minutes to get to a gym. I honestly, I probably wouldn't have a gym membership if I didn't work in one. So saying that, you don't have to, I said you bought a TRX. You can do amazing workouts on them. They're kind on the joints. They take up no space in your house. I have one that is hanging between my living room and my kitchen. So when I'm cooking, I can pop over there and do a few rows or squats. I've had some knee surgeries, and so I can squat well with those because they unload your knees. Saying that, they can be like any other piece of equipment that just sits in your house and doesn't get used.
Right.
So having accountability, a family member, whether it's a friend, having something where you can have some accountability. I have clients where I just them up in a program that they do at home, and I touch base once a week. Hey, how many workouts did you get? And then be done with a friend. There are people who are pretty to do it at home without accountability, and habit stacking is huge. So that, get up, I this and I do this, and they get into a routine, and that works for a number of people, but it takes a little while. And we talk regularly with nutrition coaching about 1%. And I think one of the biggest hurdles, again, in Amazon Prime world, is we all want it now. And we don't see, earlier, that subtle change of losing muscle. It's subtle. You don't see it. It doesn't even seem like much until maybe 15, 20 years down the road. But it's happening. We're never just in that, so I'm always either moving forward or I'm moving negative and in a decline. So if we can take that same mindset and look at it, that there is a point where we say, okay, I'm done. And now I can go back to doing whatever I wanted to do. I don't need to strength train anymore because I've now hit up where I'm strong. That doesn't happen. There's no, as you have breath, you move. And so if I can look at it the same way that I would look at, coaching, that it didn't take you, to get, bad eating habit, or it's, years of that kind of a habit. And then to change those habits is going to do the same. So it's super small things. And it might be that when they brush my teeth, I stand on one leg, or I brush my teeth and I do 10 squats. When I come into the kitchen, I, squats, or sit to stand in a chair. I come to the wall and do 10 push-ups. I regularly say, make it a game, and sit down for breakfast. I'm going to do 10 squats and 10 pushes away from the counter. Whatever it takes that gives you a signal. And as I do that more, it becomes more of a habit. Teeth is something that people, likes to brush your teeth, but we also know that we have to maintain that. Well, I don't know why there's not that same mentality for it. I think a lot of people just overthink it. I don't know what to do. It's going to take too long. I don't have an hour. But you don't need that. It's here and there makes a huge difference. My son is a physical therapist and works on the same business that I do. And he's regularly having people just, squats and then do something else. He'll be talking to you and he'll just drop into squats. He's convinced that if people would learn how to keep some leg strength and move and do 10 squats, my heart rate comes up a little bit. I get, blowing through the body. It took 5 seconds. It didn't take any time. But
and I've heard that that's as good for you, like through the day, if you're sedentary, that's good for you as going for a walk every hour. And
absolutely,
it's easier
absolutely.
for people to fit into life.
Yeah, he had gone, I can ask him again, but he had gone in one of the classes in his graduate school, had a professor that had just said, if people do nothing else, if they can just squat. And his thing was to do about 10 squats an hour, or whenever you think about it. And it's such a simple movement, but movement encourages me. And when people, if I'm sitting in a chair, as I get up, I'm stiff. But if I get up and I do 10, and then I do that throughout the day, it's going to make a difference and won't end up with dead butt syndrome is the other thing.
Yeah.
So
a lot of times that's what I'll tell my clients is even if you feel unstable, sit your counter, just kind of put your hands on the top of the counter and just go up and down as far as you can, or whatever that is, because eventually you'll kind of. Amber, did you have something?
I do, because I'm listening to all of the different ways that you can really just fit it into the little pieces during the day to make it really easy and manageable. But my question is, how often is enough to actually start seeing those benefits?
It doesn't take much. I mean, one of the myths that people think is that I've got to do all this. I've got big effort. And that with I'm like, oh man, I don't have a few hours to sit there and do that project. But it's, back to that, how do you eat an elephant? You eat it bite by bite. And it is the same with strength training that if you did squats throughout the day, you really don't even need equipment. I always say your body goes everywhere you go. When people go on vacation, when I have clients go on vacation and they say, well, I didn't really do anything. I'm like, well, your body went with you. So it still seems like you could have done some squats and you can't say I forgot my body. So I didn't pack it. So I didn't do anything. That's not a thing.
That's really though, to know that you don't have to carve out an hour every day. But if you can just do those little, call them snacks throughout the day.
One of my clients was sharing a story about her mom, and this gal is probably, I don't know, she's in her 70s, but her mom lived to be, I think, 97. And she said that her mom, retired, and she was really worried about not staying active. But as she got older, she created this whole, she would eat her breakfast, and then she would do, in her chair and make herself go up and down in her chair 10 times. She had a little routine that she would walk to her mailbox, day. I mean, she's whole routine built in, and she created a schedule that made her move. And none of it was big. It was all tiny little things that anybody could do. It didn't require equipment. Again, people underestimate, but that is probably why she lived independently. And if you ask people, age, do you want to move into an assisted living? Do you want a caretaker? Nobody's going to say yes.
Right.
But we don't take the steps to make sure that we have as much of a possibility or as much, we can, that we don't end up that way. And we do have the power, and it takes very, very little time. It just takes, anything else. It's consistency. It's boring. It's not exciting. It's showing up for yourself. When you don't feel like it, I regularly say, do the action, and then the feeling will follow. I've often said over the years, I'm like, I need a sign over the studio door that says, so you're going to drag your butt in here, not wanting to be here. And you're going to walk out taller, feeling about everything, not just in your body, but also in your mind.
Yeah. I know a lot of times if I can just go into I have my home gym, if I can just go in there and do one thing, I usually end up doing a couple of other things after that. So because it's like, oh, here, or, oh, I'm kind of sweaty, I may as well do a few more things,
And I say regularly, I'm like, 5 minutes. Tell yourself 5 minutes. That's all I have to do. And more than, I'm going to end up, it's the first 5 minutes that are hard.
Yeah.
Once you start moving, you're like, oh, I'm kind of feeling a little bit better. I'm kind of happy that I'm moving, and I'm going to do a little bit more. And if I don't, I still got 5 minutes in it. It was still part of that creating a habit.
Yeah. You had something, Elaine? All right. So this has been so inspirational and been great. What we kind of our guests is we do a lightning round. So just a real quick answer. It can be funny, it can be serious, it can be whatever you want, Cheryl. Just kind of the thing that pops into your mind.
Okay.
So,
right. I'm ready. All right. One strength exercise everyone should be doing as they age.
Sit to stand. Sit in your chair, stand up. That is, leg strength is critical. It's your ability to get up and down off the ground.
Yeah. Amazing.
Okay, what's the biggest myth about strength training that older adults have?
I think two things. I mean, one still makes me crazy, but I still hear women say, I don't want to get bulky. That should have been dispelled long, long ago, but I hear it 37 years later. I still hear that. And you will not get bulky from weight training. And I think the other thing that we've talked about is that it takes that, that it takes too much, doesn't take much time. It doesn't take even a lot of effort. It just takes consistency.
Yeah.
And you're never too old. I have had numerous clients that didn't even get started until they were, and even over 80, and there's still things we can do, and they get stronger. I mean, that's so cool the fact that I have a front row seat to see people get stronger every day. And
That's awesome.
Yeah, I hear crazy stories every day.
Yeah.
But it's awesome.
So if you had to choose one, what would it be? Dumbbells, bands, or body weight? Or something else?
Well, I'm very fond of dumbbells, but I will jump back to what I said earlier is body, because there is never a time where I don't have my body with me. And there's never,
I love that.
sit to stand, push away from a counter. If you want to get a little bit more advanced, you can do lunges, you can do push-ups, you can do, the million things I can do that take nothing but my body weight.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
All right. What is something that clients are shocked to realize they can do now?
That's I hear all the fun stories, and one of the ones I heard recently that I be a fly in the wall, because I'm thinking, how did this even happen? But this is a gal that is in one of my groups of women in their 70s, and when she's been training for about 4 or 5 years now. But one of the first things that she had shared with me after training for just a couple months is that she'd gone to Hawaii, and one of her worries was that she wouldn't be able to, I guess I took these little low beach chairs, and she's like, I'm going to be so embarrassed if I have to have somebody help me out of that chair. And she came back and said, so did you have to have help? And she said, nope, I popped right out of that beach chair all by myself. And this same woman told me just about a few weeks ago, she came in and there's 6 of the gals in the group, and she said, I just have to tell everybody here that I beat my husband in arm wrestling. First off, I'm thinking, okay, you guys both in your 70s. Why are you arm wrestling?
Why not?
Because she can.
And she now has
Exactly.
bragging rights to say that she beat her husband. So she's like, he's even thinking that maybe he should weight train so I can't beat him.
Whatever gets them motivated.
That's what I say regularly. I don't care what it is, whatever gets you motivated. The important thing is to move. But I do hear those kind of things. And I've got 3 grandkids under 3 and 1 more on the way. I say all the time, I want to be able to get up and down and pick up those kids.
Yeah.
I want to be able to carry them. I want to be able, if they want to go, play outside, I want to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And that's certainly something that I hear from clients today. My grandson was so impressed that I could do, or all the different things, and also creating a role model. So, what a cool thing that as we age, that the younger generation looks at us and says, wow, they're still prioritizing their strength. They're still doing those kind of things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm hearing the stories, and I probably should have written a book about all, because I always say,
Okay.
you can throw anything at me. I have seen everything. I have heard everything. Nothing's going to shock me.
Yeah. So this conversation has been such a powerful reminder that getting stronger is not about vanity at all. It's about vitality.
Yep.
If folks want to connect with you, how can they do that? Like Instagram, Facebook, your website?
Yeah, I have a web Train for Life Cheryl. I have my Instagram is also Train for Life Cheryl. And yeah, I'm a big believer in wherever you are, start somewhere.
Yeah.
That's first step that can be the hardest step. But like we thought in the beginning, this is, you make the difference. You can't pay somebody else, but to put those investments into because what we do now sets us up for the next 10 years. And I'm an advocate for especially ones that have worked with people over 50, but you literally can find a friend. Nowadays, YouTube has some great beginner strength videos that take very little, if any, equipment. So
Right.
the biggest thing is don't wait for tomorrow. Do something right now, whether it's just getting up and down out of your chair 10 times.
Yeah, that's and folks, for our listeners, we will put Cheryl's
Mm-hmm.
information down in the description so that you will have it if you want to reach out to her. I'm sorry, what was that?
I said, I'm always happy to help.
Yeah, we love talking to you. So, muscle is medicine, strength is protection, and it's never too late to start showing up for your body. So, thank you for sharing your story. We can tell you have a lot of passion around this subject, and your wisdom with our community and our listeners today. And to our listeners, if today's episode sparked something in you, start small, stay consistent, and remember your future self is counting on the choices you make today. Deposit to that fitness retirement account. And then don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with your friends and family. And we'll see you next time on Glucose, Grit, and Grace, the Health Coaches Hotline. Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody.